we had been, excuse me, I don't know why it's telling me that. She had been in contact with Becky Uden, who is the artistic director at Main Street, and they decided to produce this play and got me on board as the director, because I have been doing promotional, excuse me, promotional videos for Main Street Theater for about 15 years now, maybe. So I'd been doing a lot of media for Main Street Theater, and because now everything has to be sort of digital, it sort of just became like I was right there ready for this moment as well. So it all sort of kismet became, came together in perfect harmony, because I have a production company, an online production company, and my, background is in theater. And I work, and I know the product of Main Street Theater very well, and I'm a director, and it just all kind of came together, and I was able to produce this beautiful work by Caridad, Svich, and like you said, Kasia, it is very lyrical, very poetic, and just tells of a young lady who's struggling with, she's a sex worker, but she's struggling with just connection with the people around her, and being affected emotionally by her work, and finding herself. So I hope that you all enjoy it, and if you're able to watch it and you're able to enjoy it. Thank you.
That physicality is really important in your project, Lily, which I forgot to say is also you're based at Yale Drama School. That was an important thing. Sorry for that.
Yes, so Love Songs is it's a 34-part response to a 34-part poem from 1917 by Mina Loy. And essentially Magdalene and I fell in love with this poem, and in reimagining what this was going to be for the pandemic, wound up inviting a whole bunch of different artists to each respond to a different section of the poem in the medium of their choice, and sort of taking responses to mean whatever they wanted it to mean, whether that was a sort of direct adaptation, if that was sort of drawing inspiration from one particular image in a section of the poem, if it was sort of critiquing or pushing back against the content of the section, and really looking to see how, and taking this fairly sort of opaque or sort of prismatically understandable poem, and having a whole bunch of different people respond to it, what we could draw out in juxtaposition between the sections.
And that working juxtaposition, working in isolation, that's something that is a key for your project, Oskar.
Yeah, I think the truth is that we started rehearsing because it was the first 3 days of a lockdown, so we weren't able to move. Everyone was stuck in their houses, and we had this night call with other actors' friends, and around 2 a.m. we decided to read Balladyna by Juliusz Słowacki to ourselves, just to spend the night together because we missed each other. And in the morning we woke up and we felt like, oh my God, in fact, it is interesting how the really old text join us together. And we started to rehearse. First, we thought it would be just a reading to cameras, but then each day we went deeper and deeper into understanding the text, into finding ways to tell the story. Because in fact, if you would be if you would watch a movie just on Zoom cameras for 1.5 hours, I think it would be super boring. But so we were trying to find different ways how to tell the story. No one met anyone, none of the actors, none of the musicians, because there was a huge team of different kind of artists, because there are scenes that we did in virtual reality. There are collages. So basically we were trying to find a way how to tell the story when it seems it's impossible. And of course the rehearsals were maybe similar to theater, because we're rehearsing on the text and it was super classical somehow, but of course it was through Zoom or from Facebook Messenger. But in fact, it was the rehearsals and this time that we were doing Balladyna helped us survive this 2.5 months of isolation. And at the end of the process, one of the Polish TVs bought it, bought the content, bought the movie or the play, because it's really hard to say, is it theater or is it movie? Because it's a mixture of different kinds of art. In fact, I think it's like a new kind of art. So Balladyna was bought by a TV that opened us to a super different type of audience, not a theater audience. Like Balladyna was next to TV shows like, I don't know, Love Island, or or I don't know, Hell's Kitchen, and next to it you had super classical Polish text in a super art way of telling the story. So that's why I think it's also interesting when you look at it as an art form, but also as reaching to new type of audience, that anyone could watch it, not only in Poland, in whole Europe, in a small town where they never had the chance to go to theater, for example. So that's why it's also important for me.
Thank you so much. And we'll come back to that aspect, but I was thinking when you're talking about Love Island, that bringing poetic verse text to popular culture, and this is something what is so unusual and amazing about the project you are involved with, Julia.
Yes, so Polish rhymes or ceremonies written by Andrzej Błażewicz. It is a story that tells us a young man born in the 90s. And first, we wanted to set it in a theater and play it in a theater, in a puppet theater in Wrocław. But we were supposed to start in the middle of March 2020, and then lockdown came in. So of course we couldn't, similar as Oskar said, we couldn't start our project in the theater. So we had like a brainstorm what we can do about it and how to do it in the pandemic. And when it was mentioned to be a play, the idea was the huge part of the play will be it will be like a concert, because the story is written like in a 10 short parts. So at the beginning we've seen that, and because of the language that Andrzej Błażewicz used and rhymes, it sounds very much like a hip hop. So at the beginning we wanted to split it like for 10 songs. So during the pandemic we decided, okay, so what about create not actually a theater play, but something that will be like an audiovisual album. So the story is our character, main character, he's meeting his family and observe different traditions and rituals like First Communion, like Christmas Eve. And step by step, he's trying to discover the story of his family, of his grandfather, that is like a taboo. It's because it's related to a trauma and events from the Second War, and no one wants to tell him the truth. So he needs to discover it by himself, and also he transformed all those informations through the world that he knows, so contemporary world. And also the story tells very important and very much important things about contemporary social problems in Poland, about conflicts, not only like political conflicts, but also conflicts between families inside. So everything around us that affects us from the inside very much. And well, we also decided to use a form of animation to create it. So each part of the album, each of 10 songs has its own video. So also the viewer and the audience has a possibility to watch everything at once, or step by step, each video differently, not in order. And so they can like interact with the story that way. Yeah, maybe that's for now.
No, it's great, because I think that that collaborative aspect of your work, which is something we'll come back, also speaks to Lily's work, because your audience can also co-curate it and co-manage it. Julia, you started already answering my next question, which is perfect because it brings us to that next topic about this why now. So I guess why this text, why now, has two elements. One is how does it speak to what's happening to that current moment, but also why now, why to take something that is poetic, that is, you know, we have Caridad speech play that is very poetic and actually has elements of verse, of rhyme reappearing throughout the play. We have Balladyna, which is 5-act romantic Polish verse drama. We have a 1917 poem, which is a long poem as well. And we have a 21st century, a monologue. Why, which is hip hop, written like a hip hop piece. Why this text? Why now? And why heightened language in general? Lily.
Well, I mean, as we were talking about before, there's something so contemporary in the language of Loy's poem that feels kind of evergreen, or at least evergreen to right now. When Magdalene and I first discovered this poem and first started talking about working on it together, I think at least what drew me to it was the kind of like the tensions within the poem between sort of extreme specificity of particular images and the really open-ended, open to interpretation nature of the whole. And this kind of balance between like the scientific and the abstract and the domestic and the macro. And initially we had imagined doing this as a sort of, Mina Loy was involved with the futurists in Italy, particularly at the time that she was writing, at the time and just before she wrote this poem. And we had sort of imagined this as like a futurist serate kind of like evening of short performances. And then when we returned to it sort of around this time last year, reimagining what this project might be in the pandemic and returning to the text, and finding all kinds of new specific resonances in the pandemic moment. There's something in the just like really intense domesticity and the real like ambivalence about being a person in a body in relation to other people in their bodies that really spoke to me of my sort of experience of pandemic and like that early sort of like intense togetherness and isolation of that time. That is sort of the why the text, and I'll hold off on the why the form and all of that.
Julia, I know you've started answering that already, but if you want to add anything to your answer before, you talked about the current moment. Is there anything about the form?
Yeah, I think when we started to work at this project, we also had the strong feeling that the subject of war is like very problematic, but also problematic like for Polish people, and also something that we grow within. We have somehow in our subconscious stories of our grandparents and our and contemporary world still remember this trauma, and it's like everywhere. But it's hard to understand for the generation from the 90s to understand it clearly and to discover it. We had this feeling that the young people, they are more tired probably about hearing the same stories over and over again. So the text written by Błażewicz, it was like perfect because like I said, there was those rhymes and it could be transformed into hip hop songs. And also this led us to give this very contemporary visual for this project. So yeah, I think that's also why now.
Amelia, your project was written in the pandemic.
Yeah, so definitely it was written with that isolation in mind, and it was just a perfect theater piece because the way that I staged it with there's a wall between characters at times. At times she's wearing masks. She's always very distanced, even if there's not a wall, a physical wall, there's definitely a, imaginative wall. She's distanced from them. And that really lends to the character of Magdalene because she herself is having trouble connecting with the people around her, connecting with who she's supposed to be. She's in this state of flux as a young woman who's just coming into, kind of real. We've all been there in our, mid-20s or early to mid-20s, trying to really discover who are we really without the relationships that we have built. Just with our own minds and just kind of coming into ourselves. And that distance between her and the other characters really just kind of lends to that isolation that she feels internally, and that we've all felt at some point in our lives. So this was just, so beautifully written. As I said, Caridad, it sort of came out of her at the right moment, and I think we're hearing it at the right moment so that we can really feel. And I think it's going to be something that you can hear, throughout the years, not just now when we're in pandemic, but it's really does lend to something that we feel in our mid-20s anyway. So that we will all be able to kind of understand that even in the future when we're clear of this, hopefully. But most strongly right now because of how we are isolated, but still wanting to connect.
Amelia talked about that isolation and not being able to be together. And Oskar, you mentioned already in the answer before how Balladyna allowed you to all be together. But I wonder if there is anything about the play that you can elaborate on that speaks to that current moment apart from what you have felt that night.
Yeah, so in fact, when I already said that we call each other during night, and my friend said, yeah, let's read something, and Andrzej asked me, what should we read? And I said, maybe Balladyna. So it was just, it came to my mind. And then during the reading the text, in fact, in the first part, in the prologue, there's like amazing prologue. It's a story about a man who played the harp, and and he was blind. And after he played a song, he had audience clapping, but it wasn't an audience. It was the sound of the sea. And the prologue ends with a sentence. And the biggest gift that we have is that we can fly to each other in dreams. So somehow it describes for me the situation that we were in. Like we were like actors. I also played in it, so we played without an audience. And the gift that we had, it was this Zoom connection somehow, that we could fly to each other like in dreams. So the prologue, of course, poetically described the situation, but for me also the madness that each of the characters comes somehow described the madness that we were falling because of the isolation. So this is the one point. This is the second point. And the third point, which was extremely interesting for me, is because I think not everyone read Balladyna, maybe in Poland, yes, but all over the world not, is like a combination of Lady Macbeth and Midsummer.
And Lear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So so there are like fantastic characters, and for me it was super interesting to find a way to build, of course, like a character who is a real person, but somehow hides behind masks. So that's why we were using we created Sabulets, who is the virtual reality designer, created masks, this kind of mask you have on Instagram, that were representing elves and the goddess of the lake called Goplana. So it was really interesting for me because we had like a real people, characters based on real persons, but we could also have some fun with technology. So so yes, and of course the political aspect, and somehow we saw in Balladyna this how she loves to have the power, and somehow in the last scenes of the war she reminds us also of our favorite Jarosław Kaczyński, when she's killing everyone who make her how you say zagraża,
Who threaten her.
who threatens her. Yeah, exactly. But the truth is that what comes from Balladyna for me is that we are not able to judge another person. That what I was trying to find, that because of when we see Balladyna with her mother in this crazy house, and we see how the piece of evil grows in us from the beginning. So like shorten that it's not possible for us to judge another person. That's what was the message at the end. So yeah. So I think I said everything.
Thank you. And it's, you know, we're already starting to moving on that, deciding on the digital form, because you all picked very different digital form. You have the Zoom play, if I may. I know it's much more complex than that, but let's call it a Zoom play. We have the website with a lot of videos and responses and digital art and audios. So very interdisciplinary. We have that YouTube visual album. And we have a digital recording of a play, a stream from a traditional theater space. Is there anything that you would like to comment on, a particular choices that you have made or particular reasons that have led to the choice of that particular digital form? Anyone that wants to answer?
Well, I guess I can start with the Book of Magdalene, because I'm a film producer as well, and I have a theater background. I just love the idea of kind of you know, capturing theater, but you know, making sure that it still looked like theater and not, you know, become a film. So that was very important to me and to the theater, that it still feel live, and fortunately, I think we were able to succeed in that. We were in the New York Times, and the the reviewer had mentioned that it did feel to her very much like walking into the theater again. So, and another aspect of it as well was that she talks to the audience, the character at times talks to the audience. So I thought of, I don't know if you've seen this on Amazon Prime, but there's a show called Fleabag, where she talks to the audience. Sometimes she'll break the fourth wall and talk into the camera. So I was able to, you know, incorporate that sort of idea of the character breaking the fourth wall and talking straight into the camera, which is the audience, and being able to, you know, kind of showcase that she's kind of talking to you because you are her, you know, we're all one. And you know, still keeping it, because we're in a theater space and because we're using set pieces and it's very, you know, theatrical in the way it's set up, that we're able to still make it feel like theater and not like a film. So hopefully we succeeded in that.
Julia, you spoke a little bit about it, but
yes. So also what I think, or what we were thinking during work at our project, was this, that contemporary audience was raised not only on films now, but also on the social media, videos, commercials, memes from the web. So all of this. So this language that we are using, our artists, also has to transform a little bit, not only because of the lockdown and pandemic, but I think also because our audience is growing and it's changing. So I think that's why, and it was one of the reasons that we decided to use this visual language, a form of animation. But when you see it, there is a lot of typography in it, a lot of contemporary and pop culture symbols. So it's also because the audience is raised on this contemporary world.
Julia, can I ask, because you're a costume designer, so how do you design costume for that?
Yeah, that was challenge. So actually, like, I had some ideas before we started to, before we knew that it will become an audiovisual album. But when we decided to change the form from the play into a YouTube album, my job transformed more into this part of visual collective, but also me, Marta Streker, the director, and Kasia, who at the beginning were responsible for the set design. We decided how the picture and how the animation will actually look like, and what we want to say with the with this picture. So, but also our main character is actually the lead actor who are supposed to perform the main character. So basically, I had 1,000 of photos of him, and I have to draw him step by step. And we also work similar to, like, I designed his visual image, because costume design is not only deciding what actors should wear, it's also a design of the whole character. So that's why we also work at all of the other characters in the play. Work of the costume designer transformed into a kind of this visual artist.
Oskar, you spoke so much already about the frames and choosing the frames, but did the Zoom appear because that initial phone call was on the Zoom, or was there a particular reason why the Zoom became the platform?
Like, yes, and
And no. I like, okay.
Yes, but because you're saying Zoom, and for me it's much more, because like like our Balladyna is a mixture of different aesthetics, from like, you know, blind date program to a computer game. So and when you know the text, is a really complex text where you have the fifth act is a act of war. So we were trying, because and it's super difficult when you really want to show it, you know, on a TV. You have to have the rights to everything you have in your piece. So it was really difficult, but at the end we found a like a shooting game, World War III. There's a Polish game, and the action is just under, you know, the Palace of Science and Culture in Warsaw. So for example, the scene of war was actually on the street of Warsaw, but in computer games. So it's not only Zoom, right? And
no, but it's that main platform. That's what I mean. So yeah.
And also when it comes to technology, I have like super interesting story when, you know, the fantastic world, and there's the goddess of the lake, and somehow she puts a spell on a young boy who she's in love with, and we made the we made the scene that they are swimming, you know, under the water. And so how we did it, the actor Maciej Grubich was playing Grabiec. He was in an actor's house next to the theater in Lublin, and he bought the trash bags, blue trash bags, and he cut out like squares and put all his room covered in the trash bags. That's how we could, you know, cut him out and put it into a water underground. So it was like crazy stories, you know. For example, where there is this scene when Balladyna kills Alina, her sister, and Marta Zimba was running outside of her house with knife, and she just like jumped into some teenager just walking with her dog, shouting. So there was or you know, different actor who was there was a scene like, you know, from Blair Witch Project, like this horror aesthetic, and Maciek also was running on the like really old building of the theater, where there was no lights. He had just light from his phone, and for 3 nights he had to record this scene. Because it's I'm inviting you to see Balladyna to understand what I'm saying. That, for example, there are scenes that 16 characters speak to each other during a party. So it was really difficult to film it. That when I joined the videos, because the idea was that, like in theater, I'm not doing just this editing. Like each movie file from each of the actors has to have the same length, and when we join them together, it's like our Zoom conversation, right? But to get the good quality, we didn't record it like now. Each of the actors had to do it by himself. So they had, oh my God, each scenes were done differently. But imagine like this huge scenes with 16 people. I had to act all scenes, each character, and they had me in ear when I was saying text of each person, and also what they should do, like you run there, so each of the characters had the same audio file in the ear, and that's how it was possible. So it was like, you know, 5 terabytes of files sent through the actors to me and to the editor. And when we finished because in fact it is a movie. So we finished the movie, and we finished Balladyna. The sound went to you know, sound correction, and we're like, oh, but okay, so we did it. The premiere is like in 2 weeks, and still somehow we missed this this what is theater, in fact. So that you always risk when you stand in front of the audience. It's not like you go to the cinema and you click play, or you watch a movie. Each night you go on stage, you run risk. You can fall. You can or you can succeed. So I thought that it would be nice to make like a live performance, but to make a live trailer of Balladyna. And we did it. It was super crazy because it was a live concert of our amazing musician Bash, because I have to also mention that 2 weeks ago, maybe we published an album with the soundtrack. So he was playing live concert while each of the characters from their house on Zoom, like we are here, were acting like an improvisation of their character, and I was in the studio and I was like choosing who to show. So it was completely live, like in theater. It was just like an experiment. It was hard to watch, but yeah, we also
conducting, very interesting, like a dirigent, conductor in the orchestra.
Yeah, it was
Thank
more.
you.
Yeah.
I wonder, so this very different processes. Lily, do you want to speak about your decision?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think, you know, our chosen platform is our performance, essentially. And when Magdalene and I moved away from, you know, moved into pandemic performance land, we had this idea to, you know, to sort of invite a whole bunch of other artists to join us and to really kind of make the collaboration the entirety of the performance in a way. So we've been releasing pieces on this website since October, and we'll be releasing the last few pieces next week. And the idea really is sort of, we began with the whole text of the poem. And as we've released pieces, we've replaced each section of the poem with the piece of content, which there's a wide range of, you know, of digital platforms there as well. People have responded. We've had a number of video pieces. We've had a couple of live performances that were initially live streamed to the website and now exist, you know, as archival video. People have written text, people have painted, made sculptures. We have one sort of 360 video and another virtual art gallery that you can walk through as one of the sections. And really the idea was that, like, we've been releasing them in these, you know, installments, and that each subsequent installment kind of is responding both to the poem and what's come before in this sort of ever-growing collection of digital content. I guess I'll leave it there.
So I will first straight away to go to you with my next question, because I think it leads nicely. So what has that, like, you described very, very different processes, like, you know, extremely different processes. And I wonder, what have they revealed you that was new, that process of adapting into digital? What has it revealed you about the text itself that you haven't realized before? Lily, if you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think on some level, I think this poem contains so much, or has so much potential to mean so many different things, that there's a way in which I hesitate to even say that anything has been sort of revealed to me in a fixed way about this poem. But I think kind of the biggest thing is that in experiencing all of these other responses to this poem that I felt a real, like a very sort of strong personal connection to, seeing them, just the wide range of approaches that people can take and the different things that people see and respond to in each section. As you know, the poem itself was a deeply personal piece. Loy wrote it in response to a sort of like a love triangle that she found herself in with F.T. Marinetti and Giovanni Papini. And it's very much, I mean, there's a way that, like, you can read the poem really as kind of like a memoir of a certain moment in her life, and the kind of like tracing the rises and falls and dissolution of these relationships. But it also becomes a much larger rumination on being a person in the world, kind of. And yeah, I think, I mean, just really that the images that speak to me and that so clearly mean one thing in my mind become something completely different in another artist's response. and that there is this kind of, I mean, I keep sort of returning to this word prismatic, but that really feels like the big takeaway of both the project and of my new understanding of this poem is like a kind of infinite fractal of potential, kind of.
Amelia?
Well, with Book of Magdalene, I'm sorry, what was the can you repeat the question?
Because I think it's, you know,
I
for
wanna make
you,
sure I
it's
answer it
perhaps because that time frame between the play being written and play being adapted is perhaps the shortest.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the process of adapting it to digital, so making it into that theater piece that was a film, but it was a theater and felt like theater, has that revealed any aspects about the play you have not realized before, or emphasized certain aspects?
Yeah, it was a challenge at first to really kind of, I mean, it's so beautifully written, but on the page, the text is very new in a way, like it's not the way we speak in this current time. And when I was speaking to my husband about it, actually, he said, he mentioned something which really kind of put a light bulb in my head when he mentioned Shakespeare, you know, is not how we speak now. We've sort of evolved to how we speak now. You know, Shakespeare, yes, it was you know, poetry, but it is very much how they spoke at the time, you know, lending from how they spoke at the time. And then now we have to sort of translate it and we have to like think about it. And with this new piece that Caridad wrote, it is like further in the future, you know, because the play was written in a way that it could be 15 years from now, you know, if the pandemic were to evolve into something worse, and to like, if we were to continue on the path that we were in 2020, if what my costume designer labeled as 2020 forever. If 2020 were to, you know, last for 15 years, Magdalene, you know, is the 25-year-old of 15 years from now. So currently she'd be, you know, 10 or something. So she'd be living her, you know, very, you know, new years, very influential years in the pandemic, with in mind how it used to be, you know, pre-pandemic. And then, so now in the future, our language, you know, sort of evolves to this more truncated, very, you know, just very shortened phrases, you know, and it's not long and flowery, you know, anymore. It's very, you know, short and to the point, and some of the words are, you know, shortened. So I think that really lent to the poetry of it, and also to the fact that it's where it's set and where you think of it as being set sort of in the future, you know, if 2020 were to last 15 more years. And I think that really was a beautiful choice by Caridad to sort of create it that way, because especially now when someone else, and I'm very excited for someone else to take the piece and to produce it, because it can be anything really, like you can interpret the text in so many different ways. Not only interpret the text in so many different ways, but also interpret the characters in so many different ways, because Caridad left it very open as to, you know, who's male, who's female, who's non-binary, who's Black, who's white, who's Asian. I had an Asian American female lead, and her love interest is a female Israeli, and you know, the priest is a Black female, and the suit is a Latin male. So it can be so many different things in the future, depending on, you know, what the director decides. So I'm very excited to see how it is interpreted again and again and again in different ways, because it's going to be a brand new play.
Oskar, anything new about Balladyna through the adaptation?
Yes. I mean, yes, but it was groundbreaking, because, you know, Balladyna you read in primary school.
Thousands
every
of
night.
times.
Yeah, thousands of times, but the teachers are so extremely stupid, they don't see the most important thing. Because, you know, what do you know about Balladyna, Kasia? Okay,
Well,
no, not you. You're the wrong example, but you know, people who have seen our Balladyna were like, what the fuck? Seriously, I thought it was just about that a sister killed a sister, and that's the end of the story, which is just the first act. And so yeah, that's what was surprising for me, is what I found in the text. Why Balladyna killed her sister. It wasn't because she was older and she wanted gold and the younger sister was more pretty. In fact, just from the second scene, you know, when you read carefully, that Balladyna was pregnant. And what was she doing? She was finding a way to take her baby out of this creepy house of her mother's. And it's in the text, because when her mother is saying, okay, I will not quote because it's in Polish.
Quote
But
in Polish, I translate into English because I need to hear that now.
Moja Balladyno, twoje rączki całe od słońca się rozpłyną jak lodu kryształiki. Już my jutro rano za linką na poletku dożniemy ostatka. Ty siedź sobie za ścianą. So basically her mother was saying, don't, you will stay at house tomorrow, you will not go to work because you're so fragile. Why the mother is going to the, you know, to, I don't know, pick up potatoes or something, and leaving her young daughter at home because she was pregnant. And the second proof is later on, when she's meeting Kostrin for the second time. They are having sex, and he's saying to her, "You're pregnant," and she's saying, "So I will born a son." And so why he is saying that she's pregnant? Because he knows her body and he sees the belly. So, and this was really important for me. In fact, it was our with Marta Ziemba, amazing actress. She was playing Balladyna. It was we together. It was our, how you say, discovery, and it helped us how you say, bronić. Defend Balladyna and defend the main character, that she's not just evil, you know, that she was trying to protect her child. And we didn't want it to show it to the audience. It was just, you know, when you work with actors, you need to have this secret that the actor is carrying, but you just feel as audience, you can feel the secret, but you don't know what it is. Some people may see it, may hear it in text, but it's not on us. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you just reopened Balladyna completely by that sentence, in the best way possible. Julia? And again, for you, it's the text is really close to the production, but what has it revealed, the adaptation process?
Yeah, so I think the most important part that's like we had to face during this process and transforming it, which was a new way of interpretation of the text, was that when you adapt it into a theater, or when you adapt a text into a film, the way how you present the story is completely different. When you want to use an animation, you can't tell the story how it was showed in the text. You need to search for symbols or metaphor. That was the first thing. The other thing was also that we realized that most of the people will see it on their phones, because this is our first thing that we use to watch everything basically in the internet now, especially the young generation. So also we we wanted to show it in the animation, like that this connection of the people contemporary with your phone is like very close. So for example, when our main character, he is searching information about Second War and the massacre in Wołyń, which was massacre between Poles, Polish people, Ukrainian and Jews, and it was very tragic. He's actually doing it in the bathroom, sitting on the toilet and just searching his phone. And in the meantime, he also see the Instagram adverts and etc. Also we used a video game as an inspiration. So another part of the story is told like one of the videos is basically like a video game. So lots of like different symbols, also how to show a communion, first communion in a different way that we already know, and we are also really tired of the same image through years. So I think that this was the challenge, and it was this new thing on how we can interpret this text. And also this, what I already mentioned, that this text can be kind of live form now. So like the audience can see only a little part, or not in not from the first one to the last one, but they can mess it on their own.
I'm really happy you've said it, because I think there's two aspects that comes out from everything that you're saying. On one hand is that how collaborative that process was, how those roles are spreading and are shared, not only by the creators, but also by the audience, but also how audience focus were all your processes. You all spoke about that, creating that different experiences for the audience, or different meanings, different access. And I wonder if you can comment before we move on, invite one or two questions from the audience, whether for you that process of transmedia adaptation, on the one hand, somehow shifts those traditional roles in the theater, and on the other hand, somehow perhaps it becomes more accessible, more open, or quite the opposite, actually not. What are your thoughts on that? I'm very happy for anyone to start, whoever feels the word.
I think in my experience is that costumes and set design, so and being a camera operator, DOP, the actors had like a huge task in front of them, because they had to, of course, we were discussing it on Zoom, but they had to build their set design, they had to make their costumes, which, like, when you will see, and I already said the story with the blue box, but like they were doing really huge installation in their houses, and what was really difficult, they had to be the opera man and act in the same time, sometimes running through, Black Theater. So it was super difficult for the actors, and for me it's impossible, like, to think about the text, to what you should act, and do you see are you in the screen? It's super difficult. So there's the first important thing. The second thing is, for me, it was really interesting, because it was the first time I worked with Bash, the musician, and somehow I fell in love, in our connection, how we understand each other, and how music is totally important. And especially after Balladyna, we made this protest performance Dziady, and music was like, like created the ritual. When you heard the music on the whole street, and how it put all the people together in one ritual. So the music is super important. Of course, I didn't have any set designer or costume designer, so that's why all the video artists, the VR artists were really, really important. So that was new, and I think when we'll come back to theater, or I don't know, to movie, it will be totally different. It was just one time the roles changed, you know. And can I agree to one person when I'm speaking right now? I want to send love to Paweł Stakowicz, because I told him that I will send love to him. He's an amazing, you know, a dancer and choreographer. Yeah,
I love that. Thank you. Who else wants to comment on that? Amelia?
So with the Book of Magdalene, I feel like you know, with all of your productions, in fact, I feel like putting it online, as Julia has mentioned, or Julia, I'm sorry if I mispronounced, has mentioned that you know, now the current state of things, the current way to ingest media is through our phones and through, you know, digital form. So kind of bringing live theater into digital form is also, you know, I think opening it up to a whole new audience, and hopefully we'll be able to bring them with us onto the stage, or not onto the stage, but into the theater, to watch us live when we start being able to perform, you know, live in front of an audience, because I definitely don't want to lose that, but I do still want to be able to, you know, connect with this new audience that we hopefully we're able to capture and be able to get their, you know, their patronage in the theater, because, you know, I know theater, I know with Main Street Theater, we've struggled with, you know, capturing that new audience, and, you know, we have a lot of older patrons, and we love them, of course, but we also want to be able to bring in the new audience into the, you know, 21st century, be able to create art that captures everyone's attention in this world of like very short attention spans. So yes, I hope that it did open it up to a whole new audience.
Yeah.
I
think, I mean, that question of like the attention span was something we were thinking about a lot, and wanting to make something that, you know, we refer to it as like the audience member is sort of the final artist in our enormous collaborative team, in that we really, you know, want people to kind of curate their own experience through this like gallery performance website, and that, you know, can mean sitting there for probably several hours at this point as things have accrued, and really going through one piece at a time. But also, I know people have had fun kind of like taking the sound from one piece and listening to that while watching video or looking through paintings of another section, and kind of piecing together their own way through, and also, you know, looking at a couple things and then leaving and walking away and making lunch and coming back and looking at some other stuff. I think, you know, in terms of the challenges of this kind of collaboration, you know, in a way we have 34 different creative teams and a total of more than 40 artists. And that, you know, the logistics of that have been difficult to figure out in a year where everything is logistically difficult. But that also has been one of the real joys of it. And I think, you know, I mean, there is making the work accessible to an audience, and there's also the accessibility of working with people who I otherwise wouldn't get to. That one of the real pleasures of this has been both, you know, working with other artists based here in New Haven, but also friends and collaborators of mine from, you know, we've got somebody working on this in Germany. We have people sort of all over the US, and like reconnecting with folks who I have made things with in the past and not been able to because of geography, has been really wonderful. And that has also been true, obviously, for our audiences as well.
That curating the audience, Julia, you spoke about that a lot, audience curator, but you also had a sign language interpreter who was very much part of the piece.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to mention it right now. So we also decided to translate our play into sign language. It was made by two professional women. And yeah, it was amazing experience also for me, because I didn't had any kind of this experience before, especially working in a theater. So I think it's the transform a play into a digital form. It lets us to do it. So it's kind of open theater, which is I think currently happen more often to people with disabilities and with who can't hear or speak. And the other thing also, which was a challenge and difficult for us, was also this form. I already mentioned the animation form that we decided to work with, and usually for almost 1 hour animation, you work probably like a year or maybe more. And we had to do it in more or less 3 months. So not only we were meeting on Zoom to discuss everything, but then the whole process, creative process, was also performed by us on our computers. So basically we were living with it constantly all the time.
Thank you so much. There's so many wonderful themes coming out of it. And I wonder, before I ask my final question, if there are any questions from the audience here with us on the Zoom call. If you do have a question, please raise your hand and I will then unmute you. So I'm just looking at the list of participants. If you have any comment or question, this is your chance. I don't see any hands.
Kasia, while we wait for maybe someone to think of a question, I do want to also add, for me personally, a very important aspect of creating the Book of Magdalene was to bring in also diverse voices. So not only opening up to a new younger audience, but also to a more diverse audience. So that was really important to me as far as who I cast and being able to open this up to, as Oskar has mentioned before, maybe people who don't normally go to the theater because they don't have the funds, or you know, they don't have access to live theater as a lot of people do. So that was very important to me. So I just wanted to add that as well. We have a question.
One hand raised. Colin, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, testing. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I have a question for everyone. And I guess one thing that I've been asking myself as I engage with these kind of newly adapted forms that were developed out of necessity, how do I hope that these innovations change the options available to theater practitioners going forward? I would ask that question of all of you. How do you think and or hope these new developments might change what we consider possible going into the future? I also would love to know if there's a good English translation of Balladyna, but that's a side question. Thanks.
There is. You can watch Balladyna on Theatre Times website, and it's with English subtitles. And yeah, okay. And I don't want to ask the first one. Someone else maybe.
Well, I know I've been actually, because of directing at Main Street Theater, and because, as I've mentioned, I worked with them quite a lot in the past decade with producing promotional videos for their plays. They have asked me to stay on as a senior staff member, and I'm now the director of digital productions at Main Street Theater. So I hope to be able to definitely moving forward, be able to create more digital media for them, not only for promotions, but also to be able to get, you know, gain a more broader audience, and to be able to have our our product, our plays and productions more accessible to a wider audience as well. So we're thinking about live streaming future productions, even when we're able to bring in an audience live, still having that as an option for people that are unable to make it to the theater for whatever reason. And, you know, also, as I mentioned, just having that digital media available for promotions, for putting on Instagram, for putting on, you know, all kinds of social media, to be able to, you know, get that audience, that newer audience into the theater.
Thanks. Lily, Julia, Oskar, do you have anything to add?
I can add, like, because I'm not sure if I understood the question right, but was it like how this our projects and using of digital form will change the theater in the future, right? So I think, like, it's really hard for me to answer clearly for this question. I only can say that I feel somehow that definitely it will change both the audience and the artists that are working on it. Basically, like, the whole pandemic changed our lives, and one thing that I'm sure that we realized, like I said, both audience and artists, it's that we need it, like we all really need it. Maybe even more than before the pandemic. We need different forms of art, and the audience needs it. We need this connection through art, and definitely I think that we realize that we should be as open to use different medias and different forms for our projects and mix it, because the world is changing. So we also need to change the form that we are using. Yeah.
I think in Poland, this art in theater, it's super interesting that Poland is one of not many countries that the artistic theater is the mainstream, not comedies and. So the technology in theater was in Poland present when it comes to VR or to projections. But maybe what is important that the bosses of the theater now see that they need to put some money into recording performances for the archives, or as you mentioned already, to have bigger audience and to reach people who doesn't have access to theater. This is super important. And for me, I think for me the lesson after Balladyna was that I'm super interested in doing movies and yeah, and even because we published the soundtrack, I did a music video which with actors who played in Balladyna, but I made like a reverse situation. So there was like 15 actors, and the music video was basically based on an orgy. So finally they met and they had sex. No, but no, like I'm joking right now, but somehow, yes, it like the orgy was an inspiration of a situation that is not possible. Yeah, but we test everyone before shooting, so it was yeah. So for me is that I really want to go into movies. Of course, not saying goodbye to theater. I have projects planned for next year and in 2 years. But somehow movies are my main goal.
I mean, perhaps unsurprising, but the past year there's been a lot of discussion, at least in my grad school, about what is theater and is any of this theater, and I think to me that feels like that's I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's maybe not the right question. And I think and I'm hopeful that there will be space. I mean, there already are artists working in sort of an intersection between this kind of sort of internet or digital performance and live co-present performance. And I hope that there will be sort of continued interest in an expansion of what that is. I also think that there's been maybe a shift or an opening up of potential differences in sort of audience performer relationships because of this, that on the one hand, there is this sort of increased physical and often temporal distance between what's happening on stage and the audience. I mean, there also, at least in many of these projects, is a different kind of agency for the audience in choosing how to interact with something, and often in participating in some way in that I think there's a lot of potential for as we move back into co-present spaces.
Thank you so much. And we spoke about the future of theater, but if each of you can just at the end say what is future for you. So what are you up to now?
Well, I'll start. As you mentioned, I was recently in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I was in an episode of Walker. I don't know if you get that internationally, on CW as well at the beginning of the year. So I've been doing a lot of acting, and I've been very blessed and very excited, really, as an audience member, even to know, because I've been auditioning for so many Indigenous characters here in the US, for lead in shows, series regulars, recurring guest stars. I'm really excited to see the future of even TV and film and media, because I can see already, just as an actor auditioning, that there's going to be a lot of content out there for Native American actors and Native American stories being told. So I'm very excited to see that sort of coming up in the future. And as I mentioned, also, I'm now the director of digital productions at Main Street Theater. So I will be definitely heading their, digital productions and putting a lot of promotional works out there for Main Street Theater. So I'm excited to be able to do that, and at home, so I can still I can still audition and still be able to act and direct and do all the things I do for my production company, Rico Productions. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in my future.
Julia?
I continue to work with Marta Streker. She is an excellent director, and with the other also female director I'm working with, Justyna Łagowska. But this time we have some plans to work in a theater after this pandemic time. I also work on my personal artist Transmedia project, which I called I'm Julia Searching for an Emotional Identity. In next year I will graduate my second master's. I'm already after a master at Academy of Arts, and now I'm studying at the Warsaw University at Culture Studies. So yeah, also a lot of work and a lot of research in the future.
Lily?
Yeah, I mean, Magdalene and I have really loved this model of working, and are sort of in conversation about what's next for this, both maybe staying entirely in a digital space, maybe trying to put love songs into an actual physical embodied space, and also talking about what texts or other kinds of source material might be our next kind of jumping off points. And then I individually am planning to spend this summer working on a King Arthur puppet series of short puppet films, combining a couple of childhood loves of mine, and then finishing my MFA in dramaturgy.
So relaxing. Oskar?
So I just took a puppy, so I'm gonna raise a dog during summertime. She's called Munia, and she's really cute. And during summertime, I'm also directing tours for concerts for to musicians like Bash and Michał Szpak. After that, I'm directing installation in theater because it's the 100th year of Różewicz, and in Wrocław in Theater Underground we're doing this theater installation of different texts of Różewicz. And of course, we are planning to still protest and do our protest performances in Windows Next in Krakow during this summer. And what I learned through the protest performances is that for me now theater is really important as an activism, as a tool of activism. And what we are planning for next year, we are planning to make a huge co-production between 7 cities in Poland. And to make we are going to make a musical about transgender people in Poland and their life in Poland, because I think it's for them it's the hardest to live in this stupid country, where whatever in Poland is difficult. So for me, what is important to give hope to people with our performances, and this is what I have planned for next year.
And what a better way to finish it is with a hope and protest. We will post all the links to all the works mentioned on the Facebook chat under the stream. You can watch Amelia's, directed by Amelia, The Book of Magdalene, Oskar Sadowski, directed Balladyna, and Lily H, Love Songs, and Madeleine Page at International Online Theatre Festival at thetheatretimes.com. You can watch the Polish rhymes or ceremonies through YouTube. There will be a link, so you can follow that as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a wonderful evening, morning, or night, wherever you are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.